Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is that you are listening, folks. Thank you very, very much for listening. Today is the 15th of November, year of our Lord, 2024. Welcome to yet another edition of the Coping Hour, hosted by Nicholas Hinkle, a.k.a. Botan Noah. Got a big show for you guys today. What do you say I give you guys some lessons in cope, some coping 101 for the 101st. Wow, look at that. I didn't even fucking do that on purpose. For the 101st episode of the Coping Hour, why don't we just dive headfirst into this thing? Because it's going to be an email-heavy show. Like, email is really going to drive the boat today. You guys did awesome in participation. copingoursubs@gmail.com, spelled phonetically. Email available in the description wherever it is that you listen to this program. Potentially the earliest in an episode that I've ever given out the email, but, you know, just for all intents and purposes, want to direct you guys to the inbox. You know, we got like 15 emails about that Pistons-Bucks game, which is crazy because a game that they actually won in reverse equal fashion. For as great as the Bucks win was against Detroit, the loss hold on. I need to put this in terms that I can actually understand. The Pistons had a reverse Ozempic good win against Miami and an equally reverse Ozempic bad loss against the Milwaukee Bucks. And I'm setting this up this way. I'm framing it this way to say, we didn't get like more than 2 emails about the Pistons win over the Heat. And why don't we start there? Why don't we start with that game? Because the Pistons win a game that, well, first of all, thank God they won that with no Jimmy Butler playing in that game. But also 1-0 in NBA Cup play this season. Whoa, group play off to a swimming start in Detroit. Maybe we'll talk about the NBA Cup in a little bit. But specifically this win. Look, we live in an age of hyperbole, right? We're all prisoners of the moment. I'm guilty of it on this program sometimes, being like, this thing that you just saw was the greatest thing that you will ever see in your life. Usually you're wrong about that. Usually that's not true, because in a month you'll be like, oh yeah, remember that thing? If it was truly the greatest, you wouldn't be like, oh yeah, remember that? You know what I mean? The exception being the most recent one that I did that, the Saquon Barkley 180 hurdle. Now that just was the greatest move I've ever seen on a football field in my entire life. Like no ifs, ands, or buts. That's just, you know what I mean? That actually was no hyperbole, the greatest thing. So at the risk of sounding hyperbolic, you will never see the Detroit Pistons win a game like they won against the Miami Heat ever in your entire life. Ever. And let's unpack that. Why is that? Well, because it was contingent on 2 major variables. So, okay, we're in the closing seconds of overtime, and Tyler Hero, about 18 seconds left on the clock, dribbles out about 15 seconds, drives, goes glass, Heat are up by 1, I think is what it was. Pistons call timeout, got a couple seconds left on the clock. They get a sideline out of bounds play drawn up in the huddle, which was just Cade throwing a lob to Jalen Durant. That's all that it was. And it was flawlessly executed. They nailed it. Perfect pass, perfect finish from Jalen Durant. Now the Pistons are up by 1. About a second left on the clock. That's the first variable. The second variable in why the Detroit Pistons won that game was because Erik Spoelstra immediately starts running onto the court calling a timeout. Whoops. The Heat did not have any timeouts. They did not have any timeouts. That's technical. That is a technical foul. Pistons get a shot, and they get the ball. Was it 2 shots? Doesn't matter. Pistons get some shots at the line, and they retain possession. You will never see Erik Spoelstra make a mental error like that again. You will never see him make just like a boneheaded mistake. Erik Spoelstra, of all coaches, being the reason that the Pistons won a game. That guy having a mental lapse and the Pistons winning. I mean, we'll take it, right? If we can get it. That you'll just never see that again. And so, okay, so that's the first thing. It was an awesome game. It was really fun to watch. It was electric. Tyler Hero went for 40, tied the Heat's franchise record for most threes made in a single game. I believe he made 10. Pretty cool from Tyler Hero, except the fact that I don't like him. He seems like the kind of guy who would shave a fake tram into his eyebrow. You know what I mean? So, okay, so he's a buzz cut guy now. That's cool. I could get on board with that. I like buzz cut Tyler Hero because it's like just, you know what I mean? Just own it. I like it. Not own it in the sense that like he doesn't have any hair. Like, no, he still has hair. That's not something he has to worry about. But the buzz cut just kind of works for him. I do like it. He does seem like the guy who would like shave some shit into the side of his head. You know, like on some 2K vibes. Like, seems like a guy that would do that. But if he ever shaves a line, a tram into his eyebrow, it's wraps on Tyler Hero's career. But I digress. Good win by the Pistons. NBA Cup for all intents and purposes. A lot more fun to watch when your team isn't of the junior varsity variety. And there's actually a chance that they might do something. Even if that something is just winning one game, which they did do so far. Pistons group also isn't that hard. It's like the Heat, the Raptors, the Pacers, and the Bucks. I think that's it. And then Detroit. Yeah, all right, that's not that bad. It's not that bad. Because then the Pistons on the second night of a back-to-back, they travel to Milwaukee, not an NBA Cup game, just like a regular divisional game. And they play Milwaukee, not just competitively, like they're smacking the hell out of them. The Pistons are killing Milwaukee for a majority of this game. In the first quarter, what was it? The Bucks had 24. Giannis had 20. And then we get into the second quarter. The Bucks have 37. Brook Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo had combined for like 32. Like, it was just them. It was just the Giannis show with a little splash, no pun intended, splash mountain of Brook Lopez. Here's a little take about Brook Lopez, actually, just while we're on the subject, while we're talking about the guy. Can I say something about him? I don't know if there's a bigger candidate for a guy in 10 years when he's out of the league that I look back, maybe I'm reminiscing about the Bucks championship run. I go, God, remember that guy? Man, he was awesome. He ruled. Because you see NBA players all the time, they let the game pass them by, and they don't adjust, they don't adapt. Or you see guys who try to adapt to it. You think of like an Andre Drummond, and it just kind of like never happens for them. And they just kind of, I don't know. I don't know if it's an ability thing or if it's like an effort. I don't know what it is for whatever reason. It just doesn't really happen. Brook Lopez adapted with the times, and he thrived under the circumstances that he was presented. And that's a dude that I will always respect and that I will always really appreciate. Is he still the Nets' all-time leading scorer? It has to be him. Nobody else has been there nearly long enough to even come close to that record, right? There's no way. So shout out to Brook Lopez. But for a large majority of the game, the Pistons are in control. In fact, at one point, they are holding an 18-point lead. And then, some stuff just kind of happens on the margins. And then Isaiah Stewart tries to kill Giannis. Oh, just let me slide that in there real quick. There's not much to say about it. Yeah, there is. All right, fine. Let's do the thing where we talk about, which side of the fence is Nick going to be on with Isaiah Stewart almost killing Giannis Antetokounmpo. Who fucking cares? It's where I'm at with it. Because here's my thing. One, I have been consistent with this, not just with players on my team. If you're going to be a villain, like, do villain shit. Like, actually be a villain. Don't, like, do villain shit. And then when people are like, fuck you, like, you need to be in jail, be like, whoa, I didn't even do anything. You guys are just like, whoa, and you just try to, like, backpedal. No, just, like, own it. Isaiah Stewart, that's just who he is. Like, he was in the good graces of people when LeBron James punched him, closed fist punched him in the face as a 20-year-old a couple of years ago. And then Isaiah Stewart tried to kill him. It was a real thing that happened. Isaiah Stewart tried to kill LeBron James in an NBA game, which, I don't know. Did he have reason to do that? Yeah. Yeah, I think he did. But then since then, like, he just does a bunch of like psycho shit all the time, and it rubs people the wrong way. Yeah, because he's not on your team. Dog, if he was doing that shit for your team, you would be like, hey, man, it's just he's got a different mentality. Like, he just does whatever he has to do to win. Yeah. Is he a dirty player? I don't know. I don't think so, but even if he is, he's a Piston. What do we talk about with a guy like Ron Holland? I think the way that he plays defense is like the quintessential embodiment of what it means to be a Detroit Piston. You know what comes with that? If you're like an Isaiah Stewart, you try to kill people. That's it. You know, the other reason why I think all the pearl clutching over this shit is like really annoying and really disingenuous, because Giannis Antetokounmpo goes up to the podium and he's like, yeah, like, fair play, whatever. He's like, I've got older brothers. Basically just equated it to that. He's like, yeah, it just felt like Thanasis, or like, isn't Costas his younger brother? It doesn't matter. But like, he's like, I equated it to my brothers just like beating the shit out of me. He's like, I've been here, done that. Like, doesn't really bother me that much. All right, well, if you're king, if the guy who it happened to doesn't really have a problem with it, then what the fuck is your deal? You know what I mean? And then here's what I do think is true. It is easy for Giannis to say that when they won the game. You think Giannis would have been singing a different tune maybe if the Bucks did not come back in dramatic fashion, namely using the Isaiah Stewart flagrant 2 ejection after he allegedly, this is what some people are saying, this is not what we are saying on this program, tried to kill Giannis Antetokounmpo. So, okay, he gets tossed in the third quarter, and that's, again, kind of what was used as the catalyst for Milwaukee to, capitalize on this momentum shift, and they ended up coming back, and they ended up winning the game. So the Bucks were without no Dame. I think he's still in concussion protocol. Chris Middleton was not playing in this game. Bobby Portis was not playing in this game. No Jaden Ivey for Detroit. No Fontecchio. No Tim Hardaway. And then for the last half of the game, there was no Isaiah Stewart. So it was a really weird game. Such a weird game that Detroit at one point in like the late first quarter is throwing out Marcus Sasser, Wendell Moore, Tobias Harris, Isaiah Stewart, and Paul Reed. I'm going to fucking throw up. What is this? What is this? What's going on here? Now, I don't hate the Marcus Sasser minutes. And even to be fair to Wendell Moore, his minutes were actually productive. He didn't do anything wrong. I was just kind of like, can you get off the floor? Can you get off the floor? With all due respect, but not really. Because, like, I don't have any emotional attachment to him. I like seeing Marcus Sasser on the floor, though. Because if you're a Pistons fan right now, what's like the one thing that you're just like, damn it, this thing? It's the turnovers. And it especially hurts when that's coming from number 2. When it's Cade Cunningham who like finishes the game with like 8 or 9 turnovers, you're like, God damn. Like, cool. 3 triple-doubles in a row? Love it. How many turnovers were you having in those games? I'd actually be curious to go back and check, like, what was he averaging turnover-wise during those games. But it's not uncommon that you see Cade have like a 7-turnover game and 5 of them were just like dumb as hell. And so if you're a Pistons fan, you're like, you almost just want not a stabilizer, but just someone who will take care of the ball and maybe stabilize when like a Cade Cunningham or a Jaden Ivey isn't on the floor, because going into that Milwaukee Bucks game, Cade and Ivey had been on the court, at least one of them had been on the court for 98% of the minutes that the Pistons have played so far this season. 98%. That's bizarre. So where I'm going with this is like, I do like that Marcus Sasser is careful and protective with the basketball, and he doesn't have that many turnovers. Like, the dude could play 10 minutes, have 15 points and 2 assists and no turnovers. All right. You know what I mean? You just kind of wonder, like, how do we shoehorn Marcus Sasser into the mix a little bit more than he gets? Because, like, you're not going to get Mike Conley. You're just not going to get him. You're not going to get Corey Joseph back. Don't really want him. Like, I don't hate Corey Joseph, but I'm just kind of like, that's not really the juice I'm looking for here. It does stink. You know, about a week ago, word to Bobby Shmurda, there was that report that came out that was like, yeah, the Pistons actually offered Tyus Jones a big sheet. And he was like, hell no. No, I'm literally Tyus Jones. I'm not going to Detroit. I would like to play for a team that doesn't fucking stink. But in this instance, using the framing that we're using, yeah, Tyus Jones would actually be pretty nice. Yeah, man, a lot of Bucks fans in the email about this game. Oh, what an electric game. Oh, maybe the best game we'll see all season. Again, I bet it is. Because you won the game, right? What happened in the last episode? I came up here and I was like, wow, that Lions-Texans game, was that the most fun that we've had all season? Yeah, unless you were a fucking Texans fan, and then you were like, this is the worst day of my life. You know what I mean? And that's the sentiment from this game. It's like, you had an opportunity to steal one from the Bucks. I say steal one. We have a better record than them. Even after the win, we have a better record than them. But, like, they are the better team. You know what I mean? You just let Giannis give you 59, not 60. Not 60. That is the silver lining from this, is that the Detroit Pistons did not let Giannis get 60. Technically, he could have. On that final possession, he just dribbled it out because the Bucks were like up 7. Did anybody else score in overtime other than Giannis for the Bucks? Wasn't it like just him? Yeah, it was just him. That was him. It was a fun game. You know, Ron Holland at the end of regulation, because that's right. The Pistons did the exact same out of bounds play that they did against Miami, trying to snatch this game from the jaws of defeat, from victory. How do I use that phrase? But this time they threw the lob to Ron Holland, and he gets hacked. He goes to the line with like no time on the clock. It's like 0.3 seconds on the clock. It's a tie game. All he has to do is make one. Ron Holland, just make one free throw. He missed the pair. And the camp right now, if you're a Pistons fan, is either send this guy to fucking Siberia, or like, yeah, he's 19 years old, and they waited 2 minutes while they were reviewing the play to like let him really think about these free throws. And like, yeah, man, he's probably really nervous. That's it. And then he just missed the free throws. He smoked them. Going into those 2 attempts, he was shooting 91% from the line so far this season. So like, yeah, dude, he was just nervous. That's fine. And there's like no in between. It's either Siberia or like, yeah, fair play. Like, he was nervous. That's too bad. But like, he'll get it back. I guess where the Venn diagram sort of meets in the middle is like, well, but it would have been nice if he made one of them, which I don't think is unreasonable. I think we as Pistons fans are allowed to achieve a healthy middle ground in suggesting to Ron Holland that next time this happens, just give us one. Just give us one. But he's 19 years old. I'm not that worried about it. Because also from him, it was a pretty fun game. Like, he was just at the rim constantly. Some fun finishes from him. Malik Beasley hit, I don't remember if it was 99 or 100 threes in this game, but it was somewhere north of 100. He was really good. Been getting a lot of production out of him these last few games. Good to see that from him. Was definitely the first loss this season, though, from Detroit that I actually was kind of, like, upset. Because you're up by 18 points. And you're going to tell, well, Nick, a 20-point lead in 2024, that's not the same thing as it was, even 10 years ago. For sure. But really, though? Really? Because you looked really good. Because what it almost feels like with Milwaukee right now is their problem isn't even if in that game that we're talking about against the Pistons, like, they were severely undermanned. So was Detroit, but I digress. I wouldn't say quite to the consequential extent that Milwaukee was. It's almost like they're playing stiff, and that like they're playing to not let the avalanche keep happening in the standings. You know what I mean? Like, they're all very acutely aware of the position that they are in to start the season, and they're trying to play mistake-free basketball instead of just going out there and playing. You know what I mean? Whereas, like, Giannis doesn't have that problem at all because he's Giannis Antetokounmpo, and it's not a problem. So, yeah, it was a good game. It was fun, except I hated the latter half of it, and I stopped having fun pretty early on. So, folks, it's again, we're going to do emails for the rest of the show because you guys crushed it in the inbox this week. copingoursubs@gmail.com, spelled phonetically. Email available in the description, wherever it is that you listen to this program. This first one comes into us from Theo, a hilariously written email from Theo. Subject line, The Ballad of Steve Kerr. What's up, Nicholas? First off, obligatory, first time, long time. Now let's pivot. We're keeping it short and sweet today, like Leandro Barbosa, and we're talking about Dubs basketball. You all laughed at him. Quote, he's a bad coach. He didn't play Tatum in the Olympics. KD carried. Well, who's laughing now? Steve Kerr's fluid, lightning-fast 12-man rotation has other younger teams shitting their proverbial britches, and it begs the question, what kind of coach would implement such a dynamic system at such a late point in their career? A coach of the year. That's who. My point is that if my precious Warriors win, 55, 60 games, is Steve Kerr not the fair and deserving obvious choice for Coach of the Year? Because other than Joe undiagnosed Missoula, who would be considered a failure if his team didn't win the Eastern Conference outright, or Kenny Atkinson, graduate of the Steve Kerr coaching tree, by the way, who, would deserve it if the Cavs are lucky enough to stay hot/healthy all year, who is there? The answer is a bunch of fucking underperforming and hyped up nothing burgers. So please, apologize for what you have said about the play-in game last year and get on board the Kerr hype train before it's too late. Thank you. And fuck the Clippers. From Theo. Theo, I just want to cover my bases. I didn't say any of this shit. I feel like 50 Cent. I'm like, what did he say fuck me for? I didn't say any of this bullshit. What are you talking about? I don't think I did. You know what? No, I'm going to challenge you to find the clip if you think I did, because you're going to be sifting through a lot of footage and you're going to drive my viewer retention up. I didn't say any of this shit. I am going to get defensive about this because I love Steve Kerr. I think the people who are like, he didn't play Jason Tatum in the Olympics are dumb as hell. They're dumb as fuck. You had Steph Curry and Kevin Durant and LeBron James on essentially their international farewell tour. Like, what was he supposed to, you know what I mean? I don't really want to rehash this conversation because, like, we're over it. I think the people who say that are babies. KD carried. Those people are babies. What was the other one you said? He's a bad coach. I don't think anybody's ever said that. I don't think anybody's ever said that. The meanest thing that I've ever said about Steve Kerr is probably just making fun of him for having a bad back. Probably just that. Let's actually do the email, though. Shout out to Leandro Barbosa, the Brazilian blur. How about that one year that he just, like, popped up at the end of his career? He had hair. What the fuck? What was that? Leandro Barbosa was just like, actually, he's like a chia pet. He's just like, he was just gone for the summer. He's like, I have hair now, by the way. Oh, okay. Doing transplants down in Brazil. What's going on down there? Shout out to him. Coach of the year. Yeah, Steve Kerr right now. Because I guess maybe something mean I've said about the Warriors as a whole. It has nothing to do with Steve Kerr. It was just like, I think their roster is boring and isn't fun. Who's their GM now? Mike Dunleavy? Yeah, I was like, Kyle Anderson. Not a fan of Kyle Anderson. The Buddy Hield thing, we got an email about Buddy Hield in the last episode. We'll, put a pin in that, see where we're at in the cycle, the Buddy Hield cycle in about 3 months. See how Warriors fans are feeling about that. Is it sustainable? I don't know. It never has been in his entire career, so we'll see how much good basketball he keeps playing consecutively this season. Steph is Steph. How's Draymond been doing this year? How's that been going? I don't know. I genuinely have no idea. But no, they're near the top of the standings. They've been playing really competitive basketball and winning basketball, by the way. That's the important thing. Kenny Atkinson, as of right now, would be the pick. I think unequivocally right now. They're 13-0 as of this taping. The Cleveland Cavaliers are 13-0. Pulled off a win against the Sixers last night. Again, as of this taping. Last night. Missoula. What would the Celtics have to not do? Well, no, I don't even think that's the question. I think the question is, what would the Celtics have to do in order for Missoula to win Coach of the Year? They would have to win like 70 games, seriously. Or they would have to have a major injury to one of the Jays, maybe even add the third J in there, Drew Holiday. But they still win a lot of games. You know what I mean? They navigate through that. Which, if any team could in the NBA, it would be Boston, just depth-wise. If Dagnall won, well, they got injuries going on right now. Is Hartenstein back yet? I don't think he's back yet. What's going on with him? Chet Holmgren out for 8 to 10. They just don't have a center. They just don't have a center. You know what sucks is Hunter Dickinson is 100% going to get drafted by the Thunder. Somehow it's going to happen. It's going to piss me off. Why is that guy allowed to play basketball? Why is he still allowed to be in college? He's 100 years old. Hunter Dickinson recorded his 50th career double-double against Michigan State. Why the fuck is he... How do you even play enough college basketball to record 50 double-doubles? Are you insane? The guy's been in college since the Obama administration. It ended 8 years ago. What the fuck is going on? What were we talking about? It's Coach of the Year. Yeah, it would be Kenny Atkinson right now. I appreciate the fire. Very funny email. Worded very funny. But when you go 13-0, especially in your first year, talk about a culture-building machine. Kenny Atkinson. He just picks up the pieces that JB Bickerstaff left behind. Cavs fans were all broken and disheveled. 6 months ago, they're JB Bickerstaff is soft and he coaches this team soft. And then now, Cavs fans are we might have the best team on both ends of the floor right now. If Evan Mobley starts hitting 3 threes a game, what is he at right now? I need to stop saying things and then being what? I wonder what's going on with that right now. I don't fucking know. I have no idea. If your team didn't just play Detroit, I don't have that much to say about it because I just don't have time to watch all these games anymore. Really wanted to watch the Golden State Dallas game that happened, the first NBA Cup game when Clay came home. Just wasn't able to watch it because the Pistons were playing and Michigan State was playing and Cooper Flagg was playing. Maybe we'll do Type 5 on Cooper Flagg at some point. I had a lot of fun watching him play against Kentucky. Theo, thank you for the email. Let's do another one. I'm just reverse engineering these. This one comes into us from Cooper. Cooper, welcome back to the show. Subject line, Jared McCain is awesome. And Sixers season outlook. Hey, Nick. Hope all is well with you and your family. I wrote the Russell Westbrook Wizards email. Yep, that was you. So to set the stage, I am a full-on Philly sports guy, but I have second teams of sorts in baseball and basketball. Because when I started watching sports in 2014, things were so hilariously and comically bad with the Sixers and Phillies that I naturally gravitated towards the teams with my two favorite athletes of all time, Jose Altuve and John Wall. Anyways, the Sixers' start to the season has been so insanely frustrating, and I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like it. The Sixers have now played 10 games, and only in 3 of those have even 2 of their big 3 played. They are 0-3 in those games. We are yet to see this team play in its intentionally structured state. The sentiment among Sixers fans over recent years has been, yeah, sure, we'll see what happens in the playoffs, no matter how good we look throughout the season. Random batshit insane stat. The Sixers, including the playoffs, have lost 13 games with Joel Embiid since the start of last year, which itself is insane, but not as insane as the fact that 7 of those losses are to the Knicks. Tibbs knows something, and I want him investigated. My main point in this email is slightly more positive. Jared McCain is absolutely awesome, and his presence on the Sixers has made me question certain things about the culture of sports fandom in the months since he was drafted. The NBA or Sixers Instagram posts literally anything about him, and 70% of the comments are something like, he paints his nails, which is gay, so I don't respect him as a basketball player. This, following the way that people talked about Caleb Williams leading up to / following the NFL draft a few months prior, made me become a little bit more aware of what the average sports consumer really is, ... maybe? Yeah, and then you kind of go on to reiterate that. Cooper, thank you very much for the email. Yeah, man. Yeah, internalized homophobia. Dudes watch sports and they're like, muscles, testosterone, can't paint your nails. What are you, queer? It's like, not allowed to do that. I painted my nails and I had like a very chronically online left-leaning like gay audience like a few years ago when I was doing that, and still out of the woodwork, people would be like, you're gay and you should kill yourself. It's just how it goes. Because as soon as you do that and you start talking about sports, people are like, what are you, some kind of Nancy? You some kind of Nancy? You some kind of freak? What bathroom you walk into? Homo? And then that, like, I'm serious, like vitriol that is spit at you. It's crazy, right? Caleb Williams, it definitely happened with him, but it also happened with him because he was, what was he doing? He was like courtside, maybe at a W game, and he had like eyeliner on or like blush or something, and then he had his nails painted because he always, maybe he didn't, I don't remember, but he also had like a pink, like fuzzy flip phone. Isn't that what it was? And people were like, gay. They were like doing like Nazi science and like measuring like his hands around his phone and being like, homosexual. That's a gay man. I think people just kind of like, I would say the same thing about Jared McCain, that I think it's actually just that they are some of the first like true Zoomers of like the, not like my age Zoomers, but like the 2000, and what were the year they would have been born? Like 2004, maybe a little bit before that, like 2002. Like they're just fucking weird. They're just weird. And it's a level, like a generation of kids who were brought up exclusively by the internet. They've never known a world that wasn't an internet. They're starting to enter the workforce. Watch out. All right. Now, I don't really know that. I don't want to say that because that's not my place to say that. But yeah, just internalize homophobia. It's a big thing. It's going to be way more nuance from somebody else on this, and I'm going to really appreciate it. But it doesn't surprise me. Jared McCain has had a couple games where he's like, what? It's like you look at the box score. Jared McCain, wow, 21 points. Whoa. Like 2 games later. Jared McCain, 25. Whoa. Then 23. Whoa. 31. 33. Like he just like keeps scoring the ball. It's cool. It's really, really cool. It's also crazy because where did he go? He went to Duke? Ugh. Yikes. Imagine the shit that he had to hear at Duke. It's tough because comment sections, somehow both are true. That the internet is real life, I think, in 2024. In some ways, it is real life because it is a reflection of a sect of our culture. It's not real in the sense that most people don't care. Most people don't actually care. But your voice is amplified in a way, like it's a very specific type of person, a comment section ass bitch. It's a very specific type of person. And you know what's weird? And I'm not saying this to you, brother, but if you just don't read the comments, if you just don't read them, you wouldn't know that people think that at all. Because most people don't read the comments. Most people don't leave comments. You're going to tell me, oh, Nick, the top comment calling Jared McCain gay had 12,000 likes. It had 10,000 upvotes. You know how many people probably, the click-through of that, the engagement of that post, you know how many more people just saw it, maybe double-tapped it and kept scrolling? I would say like probably 10 times that amount, if not more, right? Most people were just like, oh, that's funny, or like whatever, and they just kind of like kept going. But it's a cesspool, these comment sections. So yes, people do feel that way. But a majority of people are just kind of like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, that's cool. So I agree with you. There's no but. I hear you, brother. copinghoursubs@gmail.com, spelled phonetically, email available in the description, wherever it is that you listen to this program. Here's a funny one. This one comes into us from Alex. Subject line: I could have told Tony Romo the truth about his Super Bowl call. Alex, welcome to the show. Hey, Nick, I hope you're doing well. This is just setting in now that I had the opportunity to tell Tony Romo that he fucked up the Super Bowl call that we listeners and you know very well about. To set the scene, I was in the front row of the student section at my college's football game. My friend pointed at a man in a beige suit who was close to us, talking to a coach near the sideline, and says, "Oh shit, that's Tony Romo." Because I listened to this podcast, the first thing that came to mind is him fucking up the call of the last Super Bowl. And then in parentheses, you wrote that and Dallas. Fuck Dallas. Yeah, fuck the Cowboys. Next thing I know, A's walking almost directly towards the section I'm in. And keep in mind, it is fairly quiet. A few more people recognize him and reach out for a high five, and I join them. Once he was about 6 to 8 feet in front of us, I definitely could have said, "Hey, why'd you fuck up the Super Bowl call?" Or something like that. I could have, but I didn't because it would feel rude and wrong. Eventually, he did go down the line and high five everyone in the front row of our section. Anyways, that's the story. And it also reminded me of a hypothetical that you and James Edwards III talked about on the Buddy Cardigan show. If he ever met J. Cole, that he would be honest and say he wasn't a fan of Cole's music. Not saying my potential action and James's hypothetical action are the same, but I was just wondering if that would stir up... No, it is the same. Kind of the same. First of all, I didn't believe James then, and I fucking don't believe that anybody would ever do that now. Because, like, you did the right thing, by the way. I love this email, and I love that that's what you thought of in the moment. But you did the right thing by not saying that. That would be fucking horrible and rude, and, like, why would you say that? You know what I mean? Like, why would you say that? So good for you for not doing that. The other piece of this is, there are a couple things, but the other piece of this is, it's not Tony Romo that you have to blame. Because the truth is if I saw Tony Romo walking down the street, I would shake his hand and be like, "You are fucking awesome at what you do." Because as much as it bothered me that he fucked up Jim Nantz's Super Bowl call, Kansas City Chiefs go back-to-back, a dynasty in front of our eyes, and Tony Romo was just too excited about football in that moment, and he fell into the mechanics of what his job is as a color commentator. I do not have a problem with him for doing that. I have a problem with the principle that that moment can no longer be immortalized through the lens of the broadcast unless you isolate the vocals, which I guess you could do. What I would want to do is get Jim Nantz in a skiff. If I saw Jim Nantz walking down the street, I would be like, "Brother, I'm not a reporter. I don't have a wire on." I would tell him that, and then I would show him I don't have a wire on. I go, "Very candidly, how much did that fucking bother you?" I know it did a little bit. I don't believe it if he says that it didn't bother. Oh, Tony's a professional. It didn't bother me at all. I was just happy to be witnessing. Bullshit, Jim. There was a little bit of you that was like, "You have to let the moment breathe, Tony." And he didn't. He didn't. He just started breaking down the play. And at that moment, people don't care about how the play happens. They just care that it did. So good for you for not doing that. Nobody should ever feel emboldened to walk up to somebody and tell them that they don't actually like them that much. That is a horrible... I'm trying to remember, because ever since you sent this, I've been chewing on something. I swear that happened to me once, but I just can't remember the specifics of it. But I swear to God, there was a day that a guy was just like, "Hey, I actually think that you kind of suck a little bit, but it's nice to meet you." I was like, it doesn't make somebody feel great. Even if, like, for you, it would be like, "Yeah, I stayed true to my convictions." You're a fucking asshole. But it's good that you didn't do that, because now I'm anointing you. This is a visual gag for the people only listening to the audio. I'm knighting him as not an asshole. Hashtag not an asshole. This one comes into us from Carter. Carter, welcome to the show. Subject line, Ohtani/Durant comparisons. I don't remember this email, but I flagged it, so that meant that when I read it, I wanted to read it in the future. So let's see where this one goes. Hey, Nick, obligatory longtime listener, love the show. Ever since the World Series ended, I've been thinking a lot about how much Shohei Ohtani and Kevin Durant have had similar career trajectories, yet are perceived very differently from one another. Both are MVP-winning generational talents drafted by small market teams who were unable to win a championship until they became free agents and joined the Goliaths of their respective leagues. They both even had all-star level talent to complement each other in Russell Westbrook and Mike Trout, and yet neither of them could get it done. So, as someone who remembers 2016 to 2019 so vividly, and is also a Texas fan / KD homer, I find it very strange how Durant's public perception is so much more negative than Shohei's when they both basically did the same thing. I understand Durant has done more team hopping and is a Twitter warrior, but he got unequivocally more scrutiny and backlash on July 4th, 2016 than Shohei has in his entirety since his departure. How would you compare and contrast the careers between the two stars, and how long do you think it will be before, quote, the media, unquote, and non-Dodger sports fans turn on Shohei and get sick of him winning? I don't think it'll ever happen, and I think that the biggest reasons that these two aren't the same thing is because Kevin Durant spent how many years in Oklahoma City? And they did have some success, and he went to an NBA Finals, and then he was on the doorstep of an NBA Finals with that all-star teammate that you're talking about in Russell Westbrook. They had a 3-1 lead in the Western Conference Finals, and they smoked that. They smoked that to the Golden State Warriors, and he went to that team. The same team, and then the Warriors, the rest is history. Golden State comes back from down 3-1 against Oklahoma City. They win, then they smoke a 3-1 lead against Cleveland in the finals, and the consolation prize was Kevin Durant joining them, right? That's just a bad look. Is like, if you can't beat them, join them. That's what rubbed people the wrong way. And so from Shohei Ohtani's perspective, there wasn't that much loyalty to the Angels because the product that they were putting around him was fucking awful. It was horrible. Yeah, he had Mike Trout as his teammate, and by all accounts, a lot of people would say Mike Trout might be one of the best baseball players of all time. For sure. But baseball is not basketball in the sense that two guys can win a championship, right? They just can't. Shohei spent how many years there? And they didn't make the playoffs. They didn't even make the playoffs. Kevin Durant can single-handedly will Oklahoma City. Like, having one all-star teammate actually does matter a lot there. And so Shohei going to the Dodgers, I guess I would give you some credit in saying that it is weird that people just like don't care that he went there. Like, of all teams, people would have really been pissed off if he went to the Yankees, right? People would have hated that. But he goes to the Dodgers, which is just like the West Coast Yankees. But I guess people were just fine with it. I guess because Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts are just really likable guys. People really like Dave Roberts. People really like Clayton Kershaw. It wasn't a huge piece of what they were doing this year, but like whatever. People like Tyler Glasnow. I don't know. People like Yamamoto. I don't know. Shohei Ohtani, I don't think people are going to turn on him just because he's largely unproblematic, minus the fact that he's like a degenerate gambler and like pinned it on Mizuhara, and like Ipa Mizuhara is like somewhere in jail maybe, or just maybe watching it with Decoy, watching the World Series with Decoy in like a warehouse or some bullshit. What's going on with him? We still don't know. And to your point, like, yeah, Kevin Durant is online and he is very vocal about shit. I think it's hilarious. Like, I love the fact that when I said earlier, like, if you're going to be a villain and, like, do villain shit, embrace the villain shit, he did. He owned the fact that he went to Golden State. He's like, I don't give a fuck what you think. I'm here for rings. I'm here to win a motherfucking championship. Capital C, bolded, italicized, underline. And guess what? He did. He did. And then how do people devalue that? Like, oh, fake ring. Oh, like, the lamest joke is when people are like, oh, Kevin Durant actually doesn't have any rings. I don't know. Doesn't really feel like the same to me. Because, like, in the, when you paint it in this, both MVP winners, yep, generational talents, yep. Not Shohei Ohtani wasn't drafted by the Angels. He went into, like, a free agent, like, international free agency. And who's that pitcher that's coming over right now, who also might sign with the fucking Dodgers, by the way. But, like, Yamamoto and Shohei, what Yamamoto did last year is the same thing that Shohei did, where there's essentially, like, a transfer portal window for international players, mostly the ones that come from Japan. And so that's how Shohei ended up on the Angels, was because they had like however much money left over that they did. And they're like, oh, we can pay you the most. He's like, all right, cool. And so he went to the Angels. He wanted to go to the Dodgers originally, I think is what it was. I don't know. But also nobody blamed Shohei Ohtani for leaving the Angels again because of how just fucking bad they were. And that they were just doing nothing for him. I think it's still crazy that they didn't trade him at the trade deadline when they knew that he was going to walk, right? Because if I was the Angels, you could have traded and I remember, like, I don't want this to be devoid of context, but so if we rewind 365 days, we go back to last July, and Shohei Ohtani and the Los Angeles Angels are technically in the playoff hunt. I don't remember games back or anything like that, but I remember there was a non-zero chance that they were going to go to the playoffs. And that would have been the first time that it happened. But we're also just like buzzing in our ears the fact that Shohei Ohtani is probably going to go somewhere else this winter. But he could conceivably stay with the Angels. So what the theory was at the time was that, okay, it's the trade deadline in the MLB. Why don't the Angels just get something for him, right? You trade Shohei Ohtani at the deadline and you just punt on this whole like, well, maybe we'll back into the playoffs. Because otherwise you very well may lose him for nothing, and you can trade him away, and then he'll still be a free agent, and then you can just re-sign him. You know what I mean? So you're basically he's just a rental for a different team. Now, because of that, you wouldn't have gotten like, a king's ransom or anything like that, the way that you would now if somebody traded for him, which isn't going to happen, but you know what I mean? But they just didn't do that, and then I think he ended up getting hurt, and then they didn't make the playoffs, and then guess what? He went to the Dodgers. So it just doesn't really feel like the same thing to me, because the way that they went to these teams was fundamentally different. The time that they spent on their original teams was also fundamentally different. But in principle of them being unicorns, that piece of it is definitely true. Let's move on to the next one. No subject line. There's no subject line. Or wait, no, I don't need to. Well, I already said there's no subject line, and now the guy's gonna. I don't remember what this email was either. Damn it. From Benjamin. Hello, Tsar Nikolai. As you can see, the creative juices are already flowing. You didn't include a subject line, so how was I supposed to see that? I wanted to start back to the email. I wanted to start off by congratulating. Thank you, brother. Today, I wanted to discuss Giannis. You've made it clear and obvious that you love Giannis, so I feel like you are the best person to ask. What will the eventual trade for Giannis look like? What will the eventual... Oh, I'm sorry. I just read that twice. I kind of want to start this email over again. I'm fucking all over the place. I think this trade will reshape the fabric of NBA trades for the coming era. The last 10 or so years, first-rounders were the highly valued currency of GMs, but it seems like bad teams won't trade their first to get better, and no one will take the good teams first. I predict that there is a player swap culture coming back into the league. The only framework I see for a trade is either a swap for another star and stuff, or like a package of good players. Say the Celtics call, the only trade I can see is Giannis for Jaylen Brown plus stuff. Here's the kicker, though. I think he's destined to go to another smallish market team. Is Milwaukee where Julius Randle gets rerouted to? I doubt it. Does Masai Ujiri trade Pirtle again with RJ? There's a precedence for it. Anyways, what say you? Well, Milwaukee, we talked about this a couple of episodes ago. Milwaukee, they're going to prioritize capital here, because all of the shit that they had to give up to get Drew Holiday in the first place, and all of the shit that they had to give up, anything that was left, the crumbs and the cobwebs that were left in order to land Damian Lillard, I think that they're going to take the Brooklyn Nets approach to this whole thing if the trade does materialize, which we're still a ways away from knowing for sure. I know that it is like the hot button thing, that's the fun thing to do right now. Oh, what's going to happen with Giannis? The truth is we are 2 months away from knowing anything like kind of definitive, because they've just been banged up. Like when Chris Middleton comes back, when Bobby Portis is playing, when Damian Lillard is playing, when all these dudes are back on the court together, like mainly Chris Middleton, then we'll kind of know what's going on with Milwaukee. But until then, it is just fun conjecture, and it's really nothing else. But entertaining the worst case scenario here if you're a Bucks fan, I do think that they would prioritize their future, and that's why you look at a team like Oklahoma City. Sure, a team like Milwaukee wouldn't want to trade for a good team's first-round picks, for sure. Can I interest you in an Oklahoma City team that has picks from like 17 different teams in the league? They got swaps from and protections from like 17 different teams in the league. You can kind of take your pick. If I'm Sam Presti, I'm just kind of like, ooh, and I just like open the treasure chest. I'm like, take whatever you want. I'll run a BOGO deal on these if you want. John Horst is licking his chops. I don't know that it would be, and the other piece of it is that, yeah, sure, maybe Milwaukee would also want like a dude, because they still got to sell tickets and they still have to field a team that is somewhat competitive. But I don't think it's going to be a revolutionary moment, a watershed moment for the NBA, where it flips the trade market on its head and how we view players and how we quantify their value. You know what I mean? Shoot, there was another one in here somewhere. I guess not. Let's wrap up on this one. copingoursubs@gmail.com, spelled phonetically. Email available in the description wherever it is that you listen to this program. So what comes into us from Colin? Colin, welcome to the show. Subject line, what do you do off the internet? Hello, Mavs fan here, and your basketball takes are how I found you. Make no mistake about it, that everyone is completely consumed by their devices and technology. What do you do to unwind? In what ways are you touching grass? At what point are you the most at peace when you are offline? How do you maintain that peace? Sincerely, Colin. Very short, very sweet, very directly to the point. Now, I wanted to wrap up on this one specifically because I just feel like I'm going to go off the rails a little bit. I don't mean that in a funny way either. I think the problem I've had with this email ever since you sent it, brother, is that I don't have a good answer for you because, yeah, I could. When I'm with my son, that's when I really decompress, and that's when sure, yeah, I love spending time with him, but I don't know that that's like my most zen right now. It's actually pretty high stress. We can have a great day with him where we're just kind of like hanging out, but it's like, there's always something. His tummy might hurt. He's teething right now. He didn't sleep enough. Whatever it is, there's always something. Maybe he's just like being really loud and screaming a lot that day, and then I just get overstimulated because there's like too much noise going on. There's sirens going on outside and construction going on above us, and then he's screaming. I'm overstimulated, and I like can't fucking handle it. How do I stay offline? Like, what do I do when I'm offline? This is what I mean. Like, I don't love that this is my answer, but I love observing digital phenomena. And so for me, I feel very at peace being in the weeds. We talk about being like a comment section ass bitch and like getting in the weeds in like really toxic digital spaces. It's there for me. I love being in there, in the mud, in the trenches, being on the front lines of those places. Guys, remember when the show started, for those of you who were watching at the time, we used to do the QAnon flavor of the week. Remember that segment? And I would just be like, hey, here's what. Now, Q hasn't had a drop in what, damn, 3 years at this point? That dude in the Philippines. If there was ever a time for him to come back, holy shit. Please come back. Oh, guy in the Philippines. What's his name? Ron something? I think his name was Ron something. He loved porn. It was like his whole deal. He's like, I fucking love porn. It's like, I love porn and I love fascism and also pornography. All three at the same time. I was talking to Maddie about that the other day. I said that basically verbatim. I was like, if there was ever a time for Q to come back. She was like, that would be funny. And I was like, I just don't know if it would be that funny for you, actually. Because I would spend a lot of time figuring out, like, what are they saying? What's going on with them? The QAnon flavor of the week. Why do I do that? I don't know. I think I used to view it from like an adversarial perspective, right? Where it's like, well, how do you combat what those people are saying? What the people who ideologically you are opposed to, how do you combat what they're saying if you don't know what they're saying on the front lines? Because otherwise you're just going to read it or hear it second or third hand, through some Washington Post article or on like John Oliver or fucking, whoever it is, John Stewart. And it's like, you want to be, at least I do, in the trenches with it. I was listening to a show that Matty Healy did, and something he said resonated with me in like a very, very philosophical way. If you use the internet as a tool where you are your own main character, right? You are the main character of your story. The internet is your story. Then you can't conceive of using the internet for anything other than what you personally believe, and for using it as a vehicle, as a vessel to spread and communicate shit that you exclusively believe. So the idea that you would ever venture outside of that bubble and using it as an actual tool it's a complete foreign concept. Does that make sense? So for me, that's what it is I have way more fun sitting in echo chambers with people that I don't agree with, where shit that they say, I'm like, this is wild, rather than like just hearing the same shit from people. But then it's also, I guess it's not even about agreeing or disagreeing. Like, how crazy was it for you Reddit users out there? The liberal echo chamber that thing turned into during the election, that was wild. That was wild. And I mean this in the most bipartisan way possible, because it was just like r/pics got like infiltrated by bots who were like, ooh, just filled out my first ballot. It's my first time ever voting. And it's a picture of them voting for, like, they filled in the bubble for Kamala. 15,000 upvotes, 16 awards, 10,000 comments being like, yes. Someone posts like, oh, I voted for Donald Trump. Banned. That's wild. They post a picture of like, here's Kamala Harris eating Doritos. Like, oh my God, how fucking funny is she? How quirky is she? 40,000 upvotes. And then they'd be like, here's a picture of Donald Trump in like 8K zoomed into his face, you can see all of his pores and that his spray tan is all fucked up. And everyone's like, yeah. And then someone will leave a comment like, hey, this kind of seems weird. Banned. What the fuck is, that's wild. But it's like, if you go on Twitter, it's just the inverse of that, right? It's the literal inverse of that. Because that was Twitter for a lot of years, where a lot of like right-wing voices would sort of get like kicked down a little bit. I don't want to say like suppressed and censored. Oh, it's an attack on free speech. Because like, I don't know. I don't know. But those echo chambers like aren't, they're just weird. And then you like get in the real weeds and like, I don't know. It's not so much about, I'm just all over the place. I kind of want to get back on the road here. I'm not saying anything that I don't agree with. I'm just like, trying to make like 6 different points at once. I don't like to decompress that much because that's not even what I mean. I just don't decompress that much from the internet specifically because I do view it as, even though this is sort of for fun and something I do in my leisure time, I do think those digital perspectives are really important and they're crucial because they are a snapshot of the culture that we currently live in. So it is more important to me to go out of my way to find shit that I may not agree with or that I may find wild than just reading the same shit that I read all the time that I'm like, okay, I get it. Do you really want to be in a subreddit that just, man, doesn't capitalism suck? Isn't capitalism just the worst? Sure. Yeah. You know what I want to find out? I want to find the people who are like, no, this shit rules. This shit's awesome. It's a really lame example because I could give you 50 reasons why somebody would think that it's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, use Hamas as an example. No, don't use Hamas as an example, for the love of God. Oh, man. I did watch a video semi-recently of a Hamas fighter. I got tricked into watching this video. It was essentially a goddamn Rickroll, but it was just them blowing someone's head off. And I thought it was from a movie at first. So I went back and watched it again. Because I was like, what is that movie? I was like, is that Indiana Jones? What is that? No, it was a Hamas fighter being like, death to Israelis. And he blew someone's head off. And I was like, that's too bad. That's tough. Didn't like that. Don't wish that I saw that. And then what was that movie that Israel came out with? What is it called? It's like something hours. It's like a number of hours, I think is what it was. And it's like a 60, 90-minute film of just CCTV footage from around Israel when Hamas attacked. They got over the fence and they were like, we didn't think we'd get this far. We got to start blasting. Like, we got to start killing motherfuckers. And it's brutal. Because it's just that. It's just watching Hamas like kill a bunch of people. And I was like, I got about 30 minutes into it and I was like, I don't need to keep watching this. This is just fucked up. This is just bumming me the fuck out. It's bumming me out. Imagine what it would, dude. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? What's something funny I can finish up on? What's something funny that I can wrap up the show on? Been watching a lot of old episodes of The Price is Right. Shout out to Bob Barker. Rest in peace to a king, by the way. Shout out to Bob Barker. Because when you go back and you watch episodes of The Price is Right from like the early 80s, and you compare it to Drew Carey in 2024. You watch Drew Carey. Oh, this person, come on down. They come up. Drew Carey's like, yeah, you look like a really nice person. That's a lovely shirt you're wearing today. I love your hair. Whatever you're doing with it, keep doing that. That look is amazing on you. All right, George, what's the next item up for bid, right? It's very, very kind-spirited, warm-hearted, all that. And you go back 40 years, this person, come on down. And Bob Barker would immediately be like, you look like a fucking asshole. You look like you're a piece of shit. You don't look that nice. And then there was one woman that we were watching. She got 3 bids in a row wrong. And Bob singles her out before they call somebody else up. He goes, you're bad at this. And she's like, I know. I'm sorry, Bob. And he's like, no. If you keep making bad bids, you're going home with nothing. Damn, brother, chill. But then guess what happened? She won the next one. And then she got up there. She ended up getting to spin the wheel. There's a method to his madness, right? My all-time favorite Bob Barker moment on The Price is Right. Again, this was like 40 years ago. This was like back in the 80s. So, again, compare and contrast. So, in 2024, you're spinning the wheel on The Price is Right. And while you're doing your first spin, Drew Carey will be like, anybody you want to say hi to? That's it. And then people will be like, I want to say hi to my dog. I want to say hi to Jesus. And it was funny. There was one time that a guy was like, I want to say hi to Jesus. But if you don't know it's on The Price is Right, the wheel has to go around one full time. And if it doesn't do that, you A, have to spin again, and the crowd boos you. So the guy goes, I want to say hi to Jesus, but he did not spin the wheel hard enough, so it didn't go all the way around. So people immediately started booing him, and it just sounded like they were booing Jesus. And so Drew Carey had to be like, they're not booing Jesus, they're booing the fact that you cannot spin a wheel properly. But anyways, right, so he's just really kind when they're spinning. Anybody want to say hi to Jesus? Really nice. Bob Barker, one time, there was this guy who was like racially ambiguous, and he's spinning the wheel. And he's like, oh, big money, big money. And Bob like taps him on the shoulder. He's like, hey, so where are you from? Gives him the mic. And the guy's like, Sacramento. And Bob's like, no. Where are you from? Ooh. And the guy was like, Sacramento. And Bob was like, right. But what are you? That guy was truly a sex symbol on American television for like 40 years. Because every time a woman who was between the ages of like 27 and 60 got up there on stage with Bob Barker, you would think that he was the Beatles and that woman was somebody in the crowd of the Ed Sullivan Show. Because they're hugging him, they're kissing him. Somebody kisses Drew Carey in 2024, you're getting the cops called on you. Hell no. And he's such a little pimp too. Because it was one woman, about 50-something years old, maybe in her early 60s. She gets called up. Oh, come on down. Bob Barker's like, oh, Denise, it's nice to meet you. And she's like, Bob, I don't care if I don't get up there at all. I just wanted to see you. And this motherfucker, no, you think he's wearing this velour suit because he doesn't know that bitches are there, that bitches are there to see, to see Bob Barker. He goes, oh, really? I'm not sure if that's true, but thank you, darling. She's like, no, it's absolutely true. And he's like, well, thank you, sugar. And guess what happened? She won. She won the bid, and she got to go up on stage with Bob Barker. So all you got to do is butter him up a little bit. It's all you had to do, and you would get up there. And then after the show, after producing a 60 minutes of compelling television, it's just such a good show. Because I was saying to my girlfriend, I was like, it's crazy that somebody probably in Glendale, California gets paid $150,000 a year to come up with those games on The Price is Right. That's just their job. But then you're like, not really though, because it's been the same game forever. Like even everything about the show is thus exact same as it has always been. But that's really endearing and that's really cool. We've been watching a lot of Deal or No Deal. Watched a woman win $1 million. Can you believe that show was been off the air for 15 years? I think they picked it back up and did it for a little bit, but it's the first edition of it with Howie stopped in 2010. Bizarre. Price is Right. I got anything else? Yeah, I was watching one episode that was kind of horseshit because I mean no disrespect to Mackinac Island because Mackinac Island is beautiful. Everybody should go there at least once. It's gorgeous. There's a bunch of stuff to do. It's gorgeous. But you're watching The Price is Right and what do? They're like, here's a trip to Fiji, to Bora Bora, to fucking Bali. You know what I mean? Thailand, like really foreignly, very tropical, beautiful places. And then we just go one episode after that, and they're like, and you could win a vacuum set and a trip to Mackinac Island. Are you guys good? Is the show running out of money? What is this? The last episode, you gave away like a yacht ride in fucking Switzerland. To a ski resort, and this time you're like, you can get on a ferry and spend 4 nights on Mackinac Island with your new vacuum set. Is the show all right, CBS? What is going on? Folks, if you're... Oh, Spotify crew. Shit. Spotify crew. I'm convinced that some of you... Which major shout out to the Spotify crew. The retention on there has been so good. And you guys have illustrated my point perfectly about why I don't distribute on any other platform other than podcast platforms, at least audio platforms, other than Spotify. Because I'm shocked. I looked at the numbers today, did a deep dive on my own numbers. How many of you actually watch the video podcasts on Spotify? You don't just listen to it. So I felt very vindicated in seeing that. So thank you, genuinely, Spotify crew. You guys are dynamite. The retention has been amazing on these. It's still very good on YouTube, too. You guys are just across the board amazing. But these last, 120 seconds of the show are reserved for the Spotify listeners because the previous 58 minutes, there's usually I'm talking to YouTube. Spotify. Also, yeah, that's what I was going to say is I'm not convinced that you guys just don't go to the end of the episode. You're like, what are we saying this time? You guys love participating, which I love that too. So we got the math stuff out of the way. We did QWERTY. One of you guys was like, I'm on a French keyboard and I can't do QWERTY. And it was like, Azusari or something. I was like, Jesus, chill out. It's just really aggressive the way it was. I was like, wow, France's keyboard's crazy. If I were a Spotify user right now, I would be commenting the first job I ever had. That's it. Yeah, there we go. First job you ever had. What was that for you, Spotify? We've talked about my employment history in the past. I don't think I've ever talked about my first job that much, though, because it wasn't Nike. My first job was under the table. I guess I technically helped my mom with landscaping. She was where we had a family friend who was owned a landscaping company, and so, she would work for them to get some extra money for the family, and sometimes I'd go with her, and I would just do weeds. I'd just pull weeds. Fucking hated it, but it was time. It was quality time that I could spend with a parent. I think that's what I was craving as a child. So I was like, yeah, no, let's go weeding. I love this idea. Let's go do this. I just wanted to spend time with my mom. But then after that, I worked in a processing plant, deer processing plant. Cut some heads and legs off a deer. Worked with some neo-Nazis. We'll dive into that in a different episode. I always wonder what those guys are up to. I bet I know who they voted for. I don't think I gotta think about it. It was scary guys, biker guys, mohawks, nose rings, but not cute studs, 6 nose rings. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? And knuckle tattoos and shit. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Scary ass dudes. They got ear piercings in the cartilage that you didn't even know you could get ear piercing. Jesus Christ, scary ass motherfuckers. Skinheads, real life skinheads. Crazy dudes. What was your first job, Spotify? Not YouTube. YouTube, you guys can tell me what your first job was. All right, I'm dragging on here. Folks, if you're listening to this on YouTube, folks, if you're listening to this on Spotify, be sure to be sure to leave a like. Nice little 5-star review, and let me know what your first job was in the comments. And I got to think of something funnier. That's not fun, but just do it this week. Just humor me, and you don't have to leave. You can leave a detailed thing if you want. Nick, just get out of here, brother. Shut up. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to leave a like, subscribe. Nice little comment for the algorithm. The 100th episode celebration is officially over, so please keep primary control in check. Sorry, primary control. Got to put you back in the box. Then I will catch you guys in the next one.
Beautiful. Primary control. Beautiful. Primary control. Beautiful. Primary control.